It was a moment so quick, so quiet, that almost no one noticed. But for those who did, the tension was unmistakable. At the late Queen's memorial ceremony, surrounded by candlelight and cold stares, Camilla leaned down slowly, deliberately, and whispered something into Prince George's ear. No cameras caught what she said, but Catherine's face changed in just a heartbeat. Her poised, royal composure cracked, not publicly, not loudly, but if you were watching closely, you felt it. A flicker of something deeper passed between them. Not grief, not warmth, but something colder. A shift in power, a warning, maybe, even a threat. What did Camilla say? And more importantly, why now? Because that single whisper may have triggered a chain of events that will shake the House of Windsor from the inside out. The British royal family has always perfected the art of appearances, elegance, grace, protocol, every smile rehearsed, every gesture intentional. A world wrapped in soft pastels and steely self-control. And nowhere is that royal performance more on display than the annual garden party at Clarence House, a charming event, breezy, delicate, tables of scones, and tea set against manicured hedges, the soft murmur of violins, and camera shutters clicking like clockwork. This year was no different. On the surface, Catherine, Princess of Wales, was radiant as always, a picture of composure in pale blue. Prince William stood beside her, ever the future king, steady, silent, watching, and between them, Prince George, the golden heir, just 11 years old and already steeped in duty. He shook hands like a diplomat. He smiled like his grandmother Diana. He moved with the kind of careful grace that doesn't come from childhood but from years of training. And nearby, Queen Camilla, composed, calculated, a woman whose presence still splits a room in two. Some see a survivor. Others see something far colder. She moved through the party with her usual half-smile, making polite conversation, exchanging royal pleasantries. But behind the smiles, something else simmered, because just before the final toast, when no one was watching, Camilla knelt beside George. It looked harmless enough. A casual word to a grandson, but it wasn't. We don't know what she said, no one does, but we do know what happened after. Catherine's eyes flicked toward them, her posture so famously regal tensed, and then, a look passed between the two women. Not rage, not sorrow, but something colder, something ancient, a flicker of threat beneath the veil of tradition. And just like that, the garden party was over. But behind the stone walls of Clarence House, everything had changed. To understand the whisper, you have to go back to the wound that never fully healed, back to Diana. Camilla's name has never existed without hers, the other woman, the mistress turned queen. For decades, she was seen as the symbol of betrayal, of everything. The public lost when Diana died, and though the palace has worked tirelessly to reframe her, to present her as loyal, warm, necessary, that shadow still lingers, especially around Catherine, because unlike Camilla, Catherine was chosen by the public long before she wore a crown, the poised commoner, the fairy tale bride. The new Diana without the mess. But behind the polished photos and public smiles lies something more complicated. Camilla never fully trusted Catherine, not because of scandal but because of her roots, middle class, close to her family, unafraid to mother her children with affection and strategy. Camilla, raised in a different time, saw that as softness, as something beneath the steel required for monarchy. And Catherine? She saw Camilla's history. She saw the way power had shifted, not earned but taken, and she never forgot it, because Catherine's role in this family has never been passive. She didn't marry into the firm just to pose, she married it to navigate it. Every public appearance, every gesture, every choice she makes as a mother, it's intentional. She knows what the crown demands of her children. She knows that being royal isn't about luxury, it's about sacrifice, structure, silence. And of her 3 children, Prince George bears the heaviest weight, the future king, his every step studied, his every word measured, and Catherine watches it all. She protects him like a lioness cloaked in lace, but she also prepares him, because she knows that one day, someone will try to shape him, bend him, whisper to him. Which brings us back to Camilla. For years there have been murmurs of rivalry, not public, never overt, but whispered in palace corridors and over tightly guarded briefings, that Camilla didn't quite approve of Catherine's methods, that she questioned her discipline, that she saw her more as PR than royalty. So when Camilla leaned down to George at that garden party, It wasn't just a grandmotherly moment, it was history leaning in, a legacy of old wounds, of mothers fighting silently through their sons, of power being passed not through crowns but through words no one else hears. So ask yourself, was that whisper a moment of kindness? Or a carefully timed power move? In a centuries-old game neither woman ever truly escaped, Prince George walked back to his mother slowly, too slowly, not like a child distracted, but like someone carrying something heavy. Catherine noticed it immediately. His small shoulders, usually upright, trained, were lower. His jaw clenched, his hands, usually folded just as they'd practiced, were tucked into his jacket. He reached her side and leaned in. No words at first, just a look, then, barely audible, she said, "I won't be king." A pause. Like the entire world narrowed to that single moment. Catherine's face didn't change, not in the way most would notice. The smile stayed, the posture held, but behind her eyes something cracked, her breath hitched. Just once, she looked across the garden and met Camilla's gaze. It lasted less than a second, but the air between them chilled. Minutes later, Catherine made the call, a quiet word to her security detail. It was time to leave. No scene, no rush, just exit. In the car, the silence was thick. George sat staring out the window, his reflection pale, uncertain. "I don't understand," he whispered. "Did I do something wrong?" Catherine reached for his hand. "You did nothing wrong," she said, her voice calm but tight. "You are the future. Don't ever forget that." But inside she was spiraling. It wasn't just what had been said, it was who had said it. Camilla. At a public event. In a moment designed to look harmless. But it wasn't harmless. It was calculated. And Catherine knew it. At home, after the children had gone to bed, she sat in the corner of the drawing room, hands folded in her lap, not crying, not unraveling, calculating. When William walked in, she told him everything, not with rage, but with precision. She told him he would never be king. William didn't react at first. He blinked slowly, processing, then the fury came. "She what?" The words punched the air. "She said that to our son?" His fists clenched. He began pacing. It was the kind of fury Catherine rarely saw in him. Not public William, not polished heir, but the father, the husband. He wanted to call his father, to confront Camilla, to explode the entire thing, but Catherine stopped him. "We don't lash out," she said. "We move, carefully, strategically, like they do." Because Catherine didn't want revenge, she wanted control. She wanted the palace to remember why she was trusted, why she was dangerous when underestimated. That night, Catherine didn't sleep. She made calls, not to press, not to friends, to the old network, the quiet, careful ones, former aides, discreet courtiers, the ones who owed her. She didn't say what Camilla had done. She didn't need to. She simply shifted the energy, asked questions, refreshed relationships, reminded people, because if Camilla wanted to plant doubt in George's mind, Catherine would remind the monarchy exactly where the future lay, not in bitterness, not in whispers, but in the image of the next generation, and in the mother who would shape that image word by word, move by move. Camilla may have whispered in the garden, but Catherine had begun her own campaign, not loud, not messy, but powerful. A quiet declaration. "You may wear the crown now, but I'm raising the king." In the weeks that followed that whispered moment, Catherine transformed quietly but unmistakably. No grand declarations, no public outbursts. Instead, a subtle but unmistakable shift began to ripple through the royal landscape. Prince George, once a boy simply growing into his future, was suddenly at the center of a carefully crafted narrative. Catherine made sure of it. She ensured he was present at every key royal appearance, each one more significant than the last. At official gatherings, George was no longer the background figure but a symbol of hope, continuity, and the future crown. And with every public glance and subtle gesture, the cameras captured a new message. George was favored. Behind closed doors, Catherine's efforts intensified. She arranged private meetings with palace advisors, seasoned veterans who understood the delicate balance of power. Her goal was clear: position George closer to Prince Charles, to remind the monarchy and the world that George was not just a child of the crown, but a force to be reckoned with. Whispers began circulating among palace insiders. Catherine was consolidating power quietly, efficiently, and with unwavering purpose. At the same time, murmurs grew that Camilla was being sidelined. Her presence in events involving the children, once taken for granted, started to wane. Rumors suggested that invitations were fewer and her role more peripheral. One evening, Catherine made a calculated appearance at a high-profile royal event, notably without William. The solo attendance wasn't just a personal choice. It was a statement, a soft power move signaling that she could navigate the royal waters alone and with strength. Behind palace doors, tensions simmered. William, protective and fierce, confronted Charles. The conversation was terse, a demand that this simmering conflict be addressed before it poisoned family unity. Either Camilla's whispered influence would be reined in or the fracture would deepen. The result? Camilla was quietly summoned for a political apology, private, strategic, and carefully controlled. No public spectacle, no headlines. But the message was clear. Catherine was not to be underestimated. George was not just the future king in title but in substance. And in this shifting palace chess game, Catherine was positioning herself as the queen-in-waiting, ready to shape the monarchy's next chapter. On the surface, the royal family presented a united front, as they always do. Smiles for the cameras, polished speeches, public appearances where nothing seemed out of place. But behind the palace walls, the tremors were unmistakable. A rift had taken hold, subtle, yet undeniable. Prince George grew more visible than ever before. He was the star of official portraits, the centerpiece of charity events, the boy every headline sought to capture. But there was a new quality beneath the confident public face, a quietness, a weight in his eyes. This was no ordinary childhood. It was the childhood of a boy being shaped by immense pressure, expected not just to inherit a throne, but to carry a fractured legacy. Catherine's posture changed too. She became less deferential to Camilla, even when royal protocol might suggest otherwise. In private meetings, in carefully controlled events, her influence quietly expanded. Palace staff sensed it first. Schedules rearranged, trusted aides reassigned. The subtle shift in power dynamics was a whisper that grew louder in the halls of Clarence House and Buckingham Palace alike. Camilla's presence with the younger generation of royals became noticeably rarer. Where once she moved freely among the children, her role was now limited, almost sidelined. The public and press noticed too. Speculation bubbled beneath the surface. Rumors of discord, of power struggles, of fractured loyalties. But no official word ever confirmed the undercurrents. In quiet court circles, Catherine received praise, discreet, respectful acknowledgments of her efforts to preserve the line. Her stewardship of George's future was seen as both protective and politically astute. The monarchy itself was shifting, not in grand, sweeping motions but in these small, charged moments that ripple outward over time. The whisper that changed everything had set the wheels in motion, and the balance of power, once assumed immutable, was quietly, irreversibly shifting. In a world ruled by tradition, protocol, and duty, emotion is often seen as a luxury or a weakness. But beneath the gold and glitter, behind the unyielding facades, there is one force that remains untouchable: a mother's love. Catherine never confronted Camilla directly. No sharp words, no public clashes. Instead, she outmaneuvered her. A quiet, deliberate reshaping of power, a chess game played with patience and precision. Prince George will likely never speak of that day. No story told to the press, no memoir revealing the fracture in a perfect moment. But the whisper, soft, unseen, yet seismic, marked him, changed him. Catherine's reign is silent, not yet crowned, but undeniable. She is the quiet force shaping the future king, the woman whose strategic love will guide a monarchy in flux. And yet, the question lingers: was Camilla's whisper a misstep, an ill-judged moment born of old rivalries? Or was it a prophecy? A chilling reminder of the battles to come, the power struggles yet unresolved in the shadows of the palace. In the royal world, some battles are never loud. They happen in hushed tones, behind closed doors, in the spaces between smiles. But make no mistake, they are never forgotten. The crown and the cradle intertwined, fragile and fiercely contested. And in that delicate dance, the future of the monarchy hangs in the balance.